Welcome, and let him introduce himself. Our first guest is Richard Dahlstrom. Please thank him for being here.
Hi. That's it? That's all the introduction I get? No, I'm totally kidding. Karen's a friend of mine, so I like to kid her. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Have you guys ever heard about engaging the culture and changing the world? If not, that's our topic. Not really. I'm kidding. Totally kidding.
I don't know if I know what that is.
Yes.
I think everybody in here got one of his wonderful new books, yes? And that was compliments of him offering them at a discount so we could purchase them for you guys. So thank you.
No, yeah. No worries. Yeah. Good. Hey, let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll get into the material here this evening. But I graduated from Seattle Pacific University, 1979. Alumni of Fifth Hill, and also Ashton a season, and then off campus for the rest of the time. And it's all good. And my wife works here, and so love the place, and am happy to kind of share with you. And my topic here, as you see in your notes that you just received, the green page, vocation, relationships, faith building. I want to talk a little bit about the relationship of faith to the rest of life. To do so, I just want to tell you a little bit of a story about my hobby, which is rock climbing. And I was climbing in the North Cascades here, or Central Cascades, with my daughter, maybe 5 years ago. And there's a rock climb up here on exit 52 on Interstate 90. It's called the Tooth. It's a 4-mile hike, and then just this kind of rock face, 4-pitch, kind of easy but fun climb. So we went, hiked in, set up our gear. She starts belaying me. I start climbing, and as I'm climbing this thing, I'm thinking, this is a very ugly climb. In other words, when you're climbing, you're supposed to be on a nice rock face, smooth. And this had nettles and briars and poison oak or something like that, and trees sticking out of the rocks, and moss. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is the most popular climb on this stretch of I-90. And it looks like no one has ever climbed here before. So I'm going up. I'm thinking, I don't even want to do this. I get to the top and then say, I want to get back down. When I get to the top, I realize that I'm not climbing the Tooth, because I get up and I can see now that we had started climbing one pass short of the Tooth. And I looked again at my map, and we're climbing some ridiculous thing called Pineapple Peak. It's ugly. It's filled with all kinds of garbage, and then I get to the top and I go, oh no, right? It's the wrong mountain. And I really want to share with you tonight, kind of from my heart, as one who graduated in 1979, so 30 years ago, that it is a real danger that you might leave college and end up actually climbing the wrong mountain. And if I can kind of unpack that for you, the goal, I think, is to look back when you're my age and say, if I died right now, I'd have no regrets. It's been a good life, had a good run, feel like life's meaningful, fruitful. But to do that, you've got to climb the right mountain. And I have many peers my age who I think are on the wrong mountain, and they would tell you the same thing. We made a critical mistake in our decision making early on, and we're in the wrong place. We sought the wrong things. And so let me kind of deconstruct here at the beginning. What are some of the mountains that are inadequate to provide satisfaction, meaning in your life, right? And the first one that I'm going to say, which might be counterintuitive, but it'll make sense later on, is what I call career mountain. In other words, if I make a successful career my summit at the expense of everything else, I'm not going to be satisfied. I have a friend who lives on the East Coast, and he invented an Xbox game that made him utterly wealthy. I mean, he has season tickets to the Boston Celtics, to the Boston Red Sox, more money than you could ever want. When he was marketing this game and when the business was growing, he got busier than he wanted to be. But he was like this, oh, it's just a little problem, a little time. Pretty soon I'll retire. But while he was busy, right, he has this wife. He's lavishing her with gifts, but giving her no time. And she is spending more and more time with her trainer, all right? And he's like this, no problem. He's gay. It's safe, right? There's nothing to worry about. But as it turns out, he swings both ways, right? And pretty soon, she left her husband for the gay trainer. This was very discouraging, of course, to my friend because he'd invested so much in his career, was wildly successful, right? Retiring at the age of 40, independently wealthy. His kids never have to work, but he lost the thing that was most important to him. And he's a Christian. Like, he never set out to destroy his family, but career mountain kind of consumed him. And I think, on the other hand, there are some people who try and climb what I call faith mountain, and can I say to you, equally destructive. And I'm a pastor talking to you. There's a danger in faith mountain because people who make everything spiritual, on the one hand, have this problem. They end up being characterized in life as what they're against all the time. Do you know what I mean by that? I mean, Christians are often characterized in the negative. Oh yeah, I know those Christians. They're the ones who hate gay people. They're the ones who hate people who live together. They're the ones who, there's a whole list, right? You guys know Friday Harbor? Anybody? San Juan Islands? You ever been there? So we used to live there. If you go down south end of the island to American Camp, there's a trail down the beach. There's a sign on the trail, and it has all these activities with the negation sign running through it, right? So here we are: campfire, cigarettes, alcohol, none. Bicycle, none. Motorcycle, none. Fireworks, none, right? Long list. Tent, none. And then someone at the bottom, they painted a smiley face, put a negation sign through it. Kind of, yeah, there's no fun on this beach, right? And very often I think Christians are viewed in this light by the world. We're known as the people who are against. And I really want to help cast a vision to change that this evening. But it's a danger on Faith Mountain. And another danger on Faith Mountain, frankly, is that we end up doing a list of things, whether it's reading our Bible, going to church, giving money, teaching a class, or going to board, and honestly, none of these things are life-giving in and of themselves. None of them. In fact, far from it, they're actually life-sucking. They drain life out of people, and I know people who have done it all right, investing huge energy in kind of being religious, but because they have this reputation, they were also at the same time investing huge energy in not dealing with, but covering up their addictions, their fears, their failures, their sins, and the whole house of cards comes crashing down. Friend, pastor in Calgary, growing church. One Sunday baptizes 12 people. Next Sunday gets up and he to preach. He says, I've been in an affair for 2 years. I resigned. He walks out a side door. No one ever saw him again. Very religious, but nothing life-giving. And so can I kind of warn you here about not only the danger of making the career the focus, but even the danger of kind of making your faith your quote-unquote focus. And by that I mean your religion. Money? No. 1 Timothy 6, the love of money is the root of all. You've heard that before, and you know it's a dangerous thing to seek wealth in and of itself. I think you have more to say about that tonight. And even I think some of us who like to be healthy, we kind of go, man, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to take care of myself and be strong and fit. And what happens when the word comes back? It's cancer. You took your vitamins, you drank superfood, and you stayed away from bacon, and still there's just no guarantees. That's not a sure thing. So, career mountain, faith mountain, money mountain, fitness mountain. Ecclesiastes 1 is where I believe Solomon says, look, let me tell you a story. I've tried it all, and every mountain is like grabbing smoke. That's the word picture you use. You think you're going to get it, and when you open it, it's gone, right? And so again and again, this is the challenge, right? This wise man, Ecclesiastes 1, deconstructs all the wrong mountains, revealing each one to be kind of a different version of what I call Pineapple Peak. In other words, it looked good. I thought it was it. When I got to the top, I realized it was the wrong place to be. Beauty, sex, wealth, knowledge, power, none ultimately satisfying. And there's an irony here because God isn't opposed to any of these things, right? Everyone is a gift. Our beauty is a gift. Wealth is a gift. Our sexuality is a gift. Knowledge is a gift. Whatever power God gives us in life to influence other people, they're all gifts. It's fine. It's all good, but it can never become an end in itself without being destructive. And I think that's kind of the message here. I knew a guy who, I think he had all of these things that Solomon was deconstructing. He was a professor in the Bay Area. He had written a book. He was making tons of money. He was hanging out in, this is, the 70s, right? So it's a little kind of weird, but, he had these friends, and they'd go into the redwood forest south of the Bay Area, and they'd all take their clothes off and, drink wine and smoke pot and talk about the meaning of life. And man, like from the outside looking in, it was like these people, they drive away in their Mercedes or BMWs, that kind of thing, all looking so nice until, again, this guy, his marriage collapsed. He ended up on the island where I live, Friday Harbor, and he sat in my office, and I read Philippians chapter 3, where Paul says, I've learned contentment. And this guy literally, he visibly began to shake, and then he began to weep. And he said, I have not known contentment a day in my life. Wow. PhD, professor at a top-notch university in the Bay Area, independently wealthy, naked, all the sex he wants, all the pot he wants, all the women he wants, unsatisfied, right? So kind of the message here is, okay, well, then, if everything is Pineapple Peak, what's the point? But everything isn't. There's a pretty clear roadmap in the scriptures, and I think the true summit is given us in Genesis chapter 12, right? This is where God says to Abraham, basically says two things. He says, Abraham, look, if you follow me, right, I will bless you. So, heaps of blessing. And then what? What's the next thing? And not only will you be blessed, that's promise kind of heads, tails, flip side of the coin, and you will what? Be a blessing to others. Blessed in order to be a blessing. Now, first of all, that's not just kind of some Old Testament thing, because if you're a follower of Christ, Romans 4 tells you that you too are children of Abraham, right? Do you know that? Did you sing it ever in camp? Father Abraham. So let's sing it. Had many sons, many sons. Perfect. Yeah, okay, we can do this. Yeah. Hit your friend. Yeah, okay. So all of us have this as a calling, right? And we kind of gloss over, we've heard the stories since Awana. No, stop here. Think about it with me, because it's unpacked in the New Testament as well. Here's Paul, Ephesians chapter 1, verse 3. You have been blessed with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places in Christ. Here's 2 Peter chapter 1. God has given you all the great and precious promises that you need so that you might become partakers of the heavenly nature. So blessed with every spiritual blessing is kind of the first part of this, and it's true. And I mean, if I just to look around the room, take a moment here, think about your life in a global context, right? Look at your education. Look at not only your health, look at your access to health care. stuff that would kill 80% of the world is dealt with one trip to the drugstore for any of us. So you look at our education, look at our health, look at our wealth. Most of us in the room in the top 5% globally in terms of wealth. Most of us in the room. Maybe you have some school debt, still wealthy, right? Think about this. We'll leave here tonight. We're thirsty. We're just going to go get a drink of water. That's a gift in a global perspective. And in addition to health, wealth, clean water, education, think about this, the life of Christ in you, which means you have, at least at your disposal, the possibility of living your life from this day forward, actually, on the basis of the strength of Christ rather than your own weakness, on the basis of the joy of Christ rather than your own self-pity, on the basis of the love of Christ rather than your own self-centeredness, on the basis of the wisdom of Christ rather than your own foolishness. I mean, it's just amazing to me that the one who beat death on the cross is making himself available to me to be in and through me all that I can never be on my own. And he will lead me to places higher than I would ever dare dream go. Paul says it this way, Ephesians 3, God doing through you beyond what you could what? Ask, hope, even imagine. So this peak you're going to climb is going to be taller than anything you'd ever even try to do on your own, you see, because you've been blessed. And so, man, can I just encourage you here this evening at the beginning to say, one of the things that we want to do here, as I think as you leave college, man, I pray that you will live out from the posture of blessing and fullness. You're going to leave here and, oh yeah, maybe you're going to buy a house and get a job and things, but listen, you're already very full. All of you in the room, very full people, blessed, gifted, with great plans in front of you to bless the world. Jesus says in John 7, he says, if anybody's thirsty, let him come to me and drink. And here's the promise. He says, from his belly will flow, does anyone know the rest? Rivers of living water. And I love the word picture because it's like this. Are you thirsty? Come to Christ and not I'll satisfy your thirst. But what? Are you thirsty? Come to Christ and you will become a river. That's very powerful, isn't it? It's saying, yeah, enough to satisfy. Will a river satisfy my thirst? I think so. There'll be enough water there somehow for me, but not just enough for me, but enough for me to give and to bless. I mean, I ended up actually at Seattle Pacific because someone challenged me to begin to use the gifts that God gave me to bless the world. I'm from California. My dad had died. I was studying architecture, Cal Poly, if any of you are from Southern California or something. Living in San Luis, happy camper. God is kind of way in the back seat in my life. I'd kind of gone through a little period of depression, but I was just living my life, and I was going to be an architect. And then in our dorm, I went to the dining hall first day of school, second year, and my faith was shaky a little bit. There's a girl sitting across from me, and she bows her head to pray. And then I bow my head to pray over my food. You know how you do, right? And then by the time I was done praying, and she was really cute too, by the way. So by the time I'm done praying, she was already done praying. She saw me. She said, "Oh, you're a Christian." Well, I was kind of going through these struggles, but I was like this. If you're a Christian, I'm a Baptist, man. I'm whatever you want me to be, right? And so then she says, "Oh, and you know what dorm?" It turns out she's in my dorm. She says, "Oh, there's somebody to meet." And so we go back to the dorm, and there's this big, hairy guy named Jim. I'm probably weighing 130 and skinny as a rail. Here's this guy who's a football player, studying architecture, but we had never met. And so Cindy introduces me to Jim, And Jim was like this, Richard! And he gives me this big bear hug. I mean, we'd never met before, and I'm just not that much of an extrovert. He, boom, hugs me, picks me up off the ground, shakes me, and he's like this, God is going to do great things in our dorm this year, and you're going to be a part of it. Really? Oh, okay, yeah. Get away from me. I don't want to talk. And then pretty soon we sit down, and he says, okay, here's a plan, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have this Bible study. He says, what do you do? Well, the only thing I could contribute, I said, well, I play piano. Oh, perfect. We need a piano. Would you play? Now listen, after my dad died, I was kind of done with God for a while. Honestly, I was done. If he'd have said, would you go to a Bible study? No. Would you join the Navigators with me? We're going to memorize 8,000 Bible. No, not interested. You want to go on a mission trip? No. This is all I said. You're going to, and you didn't ask. You're going to play the piano. Oh, I can do that, right? And you know what? We were a dorm of 200. By the end of the year, 50 out of 200 had come to Christ in our dorm and were baptized. God did an amazing thing. By the end of the year, I was like this. Architecture just doesn't cut it for me anymore. I want to see God change people. And, so I'll go to Seattle Pacific and study music. Then more things happen, but anyway. The picture here is this. Look, here's somebody who said to me, you could be a river. I didn't believe it. But I can play piano. And in play piano, I learned, oh, you know what? I can be a blessing. I can be a river. And so I hope you get this paradigm. This is the deal. Not how much money do I have, not how nice is my car, not how nice are my clothes, not as a trophy wife or how many kids or where I live or how often I ski. Look, God likes beauty. He likes your education, all these things. But what's to go after? It's this. How can I bless others? I don't care if it's only your neighbors. You're blessed to be a blessing. I mean, that's the summit right there. We're going to go after it. Now, of course, to get there, okay, how do we live that kind of life? The kind of the summit essentials, I think, are given to us in the Scripture. Micah 6:8, right? He has told you, O man, what is good. What does the Lord require? But to do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God. Now, this book that you guys have in your hands, it's kind of a book about spiritual disciplines, and it's basically kind of unpacking these three things, right? And what we're told to do is actually live differently. And the practices that we're told to develop in our life that become kind of the soil in which the grace of Christ can grow are really roughly divided up, and they're divided here in this text as well into kind of two sections. There's the things we're invited to give to others, and the things we're invited to receive from God. And this rhythm is all through the Scriptures, right? Get this with me, right? Blessed, receive, in order to be a blessing, right? Are you thirsty? Come to me, and you'll become a river of living water. So this is a picture. What am I receiving from God? What am I inhaling? And then, now that I've been nurtured and strengthened, what am I giving out? And that rhythm is what constitutes really the disciplines that are the spiritual life. And so when we look at Micah 6:8, let me make two observations. First of all, these are things we're invited to do, not things we're invited to believe. Do you get that with me? In other words, I believe in Jesus Christ, born of a Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, crucified, dead, buried, third day he arose. He ascended to heaven. He's coming back to I understand, I get it, I believe it, but so much of the Scripture is linked not simply to what I believe and give mental assent to, but more significantly, what I do. And again and again in the Scriptures we learn that belief is incomplete unless it's coupled with practices. Does that make sense? I mean, I've been married 30 years, and I think there are many, many times, honestly, I'd say, when my wife thinks I'm listening to her and I'm not actually listening to her? Do you understand what I'm saying? So she'll be like, oh, you know that Jane Austen book club movie, doesn't that look really good? Oh, yeah, honey, that's right. So just went and saw the Jane Austen. Oh, and they laughed so hard. Oh, and aren't those girls cute? And I just want to go see a nice romantic. Oh, Jane Austen book club. Yeah. We haven't seen a movie in a long time, and Jane Austen book club. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, beautiful. Hey, date night. Where are we going? Batman, Dark Knight. Let's go. Oh, you never listen. Do you get it? Look, I get it. I'm showing up. You're talking. I'm in the room. I have ears, but I'm not hearing, right? And so this actually happens often in the Christian life. This is why we're invited to actually do, not just listen and give mental assent, but actually somehow respond. Maybe you've heard of orthodoxy, proper belief. I want to introduce you to a new word, orthopraxy, which means simply what? Proper practices, right? Like, to use again the rock climbing thing as an analogy, what's your name? Brian. Brian has a map, a compass, a pack, a rope, some webbing, some carabiners, some climbing shoes, and some Gore-Tex. Is he a climber? I mean, not necessarily, right? I've got all that stuff, and I say to myself, oh yeah, I'm a climber, and I have climbing magazine, and I sit and I read climbing magazine, and I go, oh, people are climbing. I have climbing gear. I wear climbing clothes. I like climbing. I must use a lot of calories like climbers. I need more cake. And as I lay in bed reading climbing magazine, I'm eating cake. There's only one problem. I'm never climbing anywhere, right? And so that's not climbing. That's having all the gear. And I think it's the biggest problem in Western Christianity is that we've defined our faith by the gear, if I can use the word picture. Oh yes, my faith, vital. I go to church. I have a Bible. It's a big Bible. It's the proper version, whatever is that for you, right? Or, I've got this good view of women or this bad view of whatever it is. Oh, my faith is real. Listen, when the day is done, what I believe is ultimately confirmed or denied, not by what I say, but by how I live. This is why I love Micah 6:8 as kind of a pattern. And so these are things that Micah invites us to do. God has not made the summit hidden in the fog. He has told you what is good and what God asks of you. Three things. Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God. So the second observation I make here is not only are these things that we're invited to do, but second, we're invited to begin with exhaling, not inhaling. In other words, what are the first two commandments? Do justice and love kindness. In other words, when Jesus invited people to join him, his methodology was actually very different than ours. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you went to a secular university and you got involved in like Campus Crusade or Navigators InterVarsity, something like that, and maybe you do this here too, I don't know, you'd have some kind of evangelism ministries, and you'd be like this. We're going to go and we're going to witness, right? Which means in different places, bumping into Brian on the street somehow and saying, "Are you a Christian? And if you die tonight, where are you going?" And Brian's like, "Well, I don't know where I'm going," or whatever. And then we say, well, let me tell you. We unscrew his head, pour in 3 gallons of Bible, screw his head back on. Here it is. Let me tell you. First of all, you're a sinner. Second of all, Christ died for your sin. Third of all, if you believe, then, man, you're in. So believe and come with me to heaven, right? And we come back and we all get together. That's it, man. This is it. This is what we did. We invite him in, which may be good and true, but let me just challenge you a little bit here. That's never how Jesus did it. And he's our model, right? When Jesus invited people, like he always, almost always, he invites people into kind of his kingdom, right? When Jesus invites, he says, look, there's a whole new way of living available. There's a new kingdom. It's not like the Roman Empire. It's a kingdom of generosity. It's a kingdom of peace. It's a kingdom of reconciliation. It's a kingdom breaking down social walls and barriers. And you're invited to join this kingdom. Come, live different. Come follow me. Live differently. And in the beginning, the first thing is stepping into this kind of story of Jesus, right? Following, and in the context of that, seeing my need for strength and wisdom, and then my need for reconciliation with Jesus. But it starts with following and stepping in and actually doing. It starts with playing the piano at a Bible study. It starts with learning your neighbor's name. It starts with somehow caring about the world. In other words, it starts with exhaling. It starts with giving. And listen, at least speaking personally, if I don't exhale, my faith is incredibly boring, just ridiculously, painfully boring. And I become characterized with the rest of Western Christianity as someone who is against a lot of things, but not for anything. And so when I exhale, I'm invited to do simply two things: do justice, love kindness. It's pretty simple. In an unjust world, Jesus' reign challenges the structures that are oppressive, right? And there's a million ways for any of you to do this. But listen, you see the summit. It's right there. And God has shown you how to get there. And the very first thing is what? Do justice. It's the first thing. My friend Heather lives in Bolivia. She works with women involved in prostitution, trying to help them get out of that lifestyle, befriending them in any way she can. My friend Walter in Ghana is working to end sexual slavery. I have some friends at UW who are, they go to Uganda every year, teaching ladies to knit. They knit hats, ski hats, that they then come back and sell at Snoqualmie Pass, little economic development project. All of this is a way of doing justice. Do you understand? Look, you want to live, you want to climb the right mountain? Start there. Start there. Let's begin to be somehow involved in doing justice. And I think all of us have to figure out how God wants us to do that, because frankly, there's blood on all our hands in a way, and none of us can live a perfectly just life. So you shouldn't get paralyzed and feel like you can't do anything, but just figure out, well, what is it that I'm supposed to do? Does that make sense? In our own family, there's a little girl in Albania that we support through World Vision. We pray for her. I plan on visiting her next time I go and teach. We're in Europe. We're involved in something to address, spouse abuse here in America, domestic oppression. Some of you in the room, maybe you're going to be involved in the healthcare crisis in America, or the homeless crisis in America, or the education crisis in America, or the growing gap between the rich and the poor. There's a million ways to get involved, but the point is, fight away, right? He has shown you the summit. And to get there, what's the very first thing? Look, do justice. Figure out how. You figure it out. 30,000 children die every day of treatable disease. 5% of the world, that's us, consumes 25% of the world's resources. There's a continent ravaged by AIDS. There's 1 billion people with no clean water. Where do you want to begin? But if you're not doing justice, you're on the wrong mountain. And then, here's the next thing. Love kindness. There's another way to say it, equally good. Love mercy, right? It's the same thing. It simply means, I got to figure out, I want to learn how to be generous. That's the meaning of this word. And so, maybe serve in the homeless shelter for women that our church runs. Maybe teach an ESL class. Maybe help your church with a short-term mission trip. Maybe throw a party for your apartment complex. Maybe invite your neighbors over for supper. Maybe join a book club. But the point would be this: God has invited us, frankly, to learn how can I love you, my neighbor, with no strings attached. So that even if you never become a Christian, my love for you doesn't diminish of 1 inch, right? I love you because you're in my life, period. And so, man, I want to be on the right mountain. First thing, be about justice. Care for those and give a voice to those who don't have a voice. Second thing, love kindness. Let this river of living water, bless other people and just, kind of move out into the world and love those who are around you. I think it becomes, hugely significant for us to figure out how to do this. I'd tell you some stories, but I think it's okay. I hope you get the principle. So I'm invited here to do the justice, love the kindness, and then there's a last thing too, and it's what? I need to inhale as well. I need to walk humbly with God. I got to figure out how am I going to receive from God, so that I might continually receiving from God have resources to give to others. And so, all of us have to figure out, how am I going to continue to receive the resource of Christ's life, so that Christ is for me a source of life and living water, so that I can kind of be a blessing to others. How am I going to do that? And I think as we begin to move down that road, very, very kind of exciting things happen. We show up in the relationship with God, allow Him to speak to us. I'm trying to develop in my own life habits of Bible reading and prayer and solitude and silence as a means of just simply kind of showing up to receive from God. And I think what I'm learning in these habits is that it's like a real relationship with a real person. In any relationship, there's a variety of meaning and emotion attached with different encounters. Does that make sense? So again, I'll use my wife as an example. We've been married 30 years, right? And, I could tell you about, the first kiss down by Moyer, right? But I won't. I could tell you about, cross-country skiing in Yosemite Valley. The snow is falling perfectly, and I'm thinking, I think I might want to marry this person, but I won't tell you about that either. Or I can tell you about my proposal when it's the worst proposal story ever. I'm filling out my resume, finishing Seattle Pacific, and someone had actually sent me an app for a job in response to my resume, and on the app it said marital status, single and married. And I'm in the kitchen at this desk. My wife is reading a magazine in the other room, and I said, she wasn't my wife, and I said, hey, on this app it says marital status. How would you feel if I put engaged? And she was like this. She goes, that's fine with me. I mean, that's the worst thing in the world, right? And then she comes in and she goes, is this a proposal? Did you just, is that? So I don't want to tell you that story either. It's but I'll just say too, I will say this, so here's 30 years, and if you took 15 snapshots of our relationship, there would be every emotion. There would be moments of her, tearing stuff up in front of me and throwing it in the air and screaming at me, and me mad at her. There'd be moments of hysterical laughter. There'd be a lot of tender moments. There'd be moments of me crying, her forgiving me. The same in reverse. There'll be moments when she's talking to me, and because she tells me every single detail about everything everybody's wearing and the weather and the kind of car we drove in to get to the party and who all was there, that I zip out and I go, this is so boring. Why are you talking to me this way? And there would be that too, right? It would all be there. It would all be there. And moments of deep and tender love. All of it is there. And here's the thing. You just keep showing up, all right? You just keep showing up. Oh, you tore some stuff up? I'm going to show up again tomorrow anyway. Oh, you told me every detail and I only cared about 5%? I'm showing up anyway. That's Leviticus when you show up in the Bible, right? Who needs all this? You still show up. Because there's other stuff that will make you weep. And other stuff that will pierce your heart. And other stuff that will transform your life forever. You just keep showing up. Just like you did with your spouse, who at times delights you, at times angers you, at times bores you to tears. This is life, all right? So I want to learn how to inhale here, and God's given us analogies all around us, right? I bet there's no one in the room who doesn't have a close friend who hasn't had an encounter that's been unpleasant. I mean, you have unpleasant encounters. That's part of what friendship is. And you're not like this, oh, I had coffee with Sally the other day. She said a few things that I didn't like, and so I'm reconsidering the relationship. No, I'm going to dump her. She's no longer my Facebook friend. I'm just done, right? She's at a different level now, less access. Hey, wait a minute, come on. You're a friend, a real friend. Look, all of those things are there. And I just really want to encourage you not to buy into the false notion that Jesus is like some, junior high boyfriend who makes you feel good all the time. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's life-shattering. Sometimes it's angering. Sometimes it's just very normal. Sometimes it's joy-filled. Sometimes it's healing. Sometimes it's empowering. This is life, all right? So we've got to inhale so that we can exhale. And if our conditions are, it's got to be, fireworks every time, pretty soon we're not inhaling anymore. And then if I'm not inhaling, then you know what else I'm not doing ultimately? I'm not doing justice and I'm not doing kindness. And then you know what? I'm on the wrong mountain. So look, I've got to inhale and I've got to exhale. And when I do both, here's the thing. Where we end up is, as Paul says, Ephesians 3, better than what we thought it was, right? And, this is so often true in climbing. It doesn't matter if it's Mount Rainier or the Tooth. You're at the bottom and you're looking up and you go, oh, it could be kind of cool at the top, yeah. But then when you're there, you're like this. This is so much grander than anything I could have imagined. I'm so glad I'm on the right mountain, you see. And how this applies to you, if I can just close by being a little biographical, I will. And I'll say, I finished here 1979, and I have done a lot of things since graduating from South Pacific University. I worked for the Boy Scouts in an inter-city scouting program. I did youth work in a church in LA. I worked in a hospital in shipping and receiving. I was a carpet cleaner in Los Angeles when I graduated from seminary. I was a pastor on an island. I started a nonprofit to lead outdoor trips combined with Bible teaching. I've traveled around the world teaching the Bible, and now I'm a pastor in Seattle. Every one of these have been valuable. But as this whole kind of thing has unfolded for me, I will just say to you, God has taken me places that I never even had a goal to go. But where he's taken me has been the byproduct of do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God. And one of the places that I went, and one of the stories I was just sharing with you that's just so amazing, that just kind of summarizes this, is our church in 1997 went to Nepal to do a medical mission trip, and I was privileged to go along. Not because I have any medical skills whatsoever, but because I was the pastor of the church. And so we were in a Tibetan refugee camp in Pokhara, Nepal. My friend Lok, who is Nepali, works with this ministry that has a vision of getting the Bible on cassette tape into the hands of every Nepali through, and in their own kind of dialect. So we brought into Nepal a bunch of crank tape recorders, do you know? Like they're not battery run, but you do this, and then they talk, so we brought a bunch of these to this Tibetan refugee camp, and we were like, while people are waiting for medical care, we who have no medical skills are going to just be like monkeys. We're going to crank these things, and people will hear the gospel in Tibetan, and that's it. Well, the head of this clinic, a Buddhist, says, so glad you Christians are here, but here's the only rule, can't talk about Jesus. And Loca's like this, wow, we have these tapes. Nope, no Jesus. We want your drugs, but we don't want Jesus. And so you can't talk about Jesus. So we were bummed because we didn't have anything to do. There were 3 of us. So we're like, well, okay, God, you brought us here. What are we supposed to do? And this is where this kind of love-kindness piece comes in, right? We went to the soccer field. A bunch of Tibetan guys are playing soccer. We thought, we'll play soccer. No, it's Tibetan New Year's. It's the only day in the year it's legal to smoke pot. So after about 20 minutes, everyone was stoned on the field, and the game ends. So then we go over to this this monastery, and we're standing outside, and there's some kind of service going on in the temple or whatever. All these horns and incense, and the guys in the saffron robes and bald heads, the whole deal. There's like 100 German tourists and the 3 of us from America. We're standing in this courtyard. The service ends. All these monks file out. The last guy coming out has this big pointy hat on, and he stops and he talks to the 3 of us that are American, and he says in English, right? He goes, "Where are you 3 from?" And we were like this. Oh, well, we're from Seattle. And he goes, Microsoft. and we go, yeah, Microsoft, yeah. And then I'm trying to make conversation with this guy because we have nothing to do. And I go, I see you have a satellite dish on top of your monastery there. Do you kind of beam in Dalai Lama or something on Sundays for your services? And he goes, no, this is World Cup. It's World Cup. That's all we do it for. And then he says, yeah, and they start talking again about Microsoft. He goes, you know what, I've been having trouble with my email. Well, one of our guys works for Microsoft. So he's like this, I think I could help. He says, oh, well then, you'll come dine with me, right? So we follow him up these stairs. He has an office, I mean, no kidding, the size of this room, gold scrolls everywhere, incense everywhere. He comes in, sits us in these amazing chairs. Then he's like this. Servants come in, whatever, Tibetan. They leave. They come back. They bring tea, and then they, like my friend, he's fixed the email within 90 seconds. He's, oh yeah, whatever this. I have no idea. It's done though. It's fixed. And then so done. But then then all this food starts to come. So he sits with us at the table, and you know English pretty well. I said. He said, yeah, I studied University of Chicago, business. And then he says, however, he says, you're with that Christian team, aren't you? That's doing the medical things down below. He's up at the top of this hill, down below like the Grinch or something, down below. You're with that medical? Yeah. And he says, and so are you Christians? He says. We're like, yeah, we're Christians. He says, oh well. He says, we're just beginning to eat. He says, could we have a good discussion about Jesus Christ? He says, I was in the States for 3 years, and I never talked to anybody about Christianity the whole time I was there, and I'd like to understand more about Jesus. And so we share Christ with this guy for 2 hours over yak buttered tea. Don't bother, right? And everything else, all this cool food, and we exchange emails, and then Q&A going on across the ocean. And so before we left, I said, just to ask, we're friends now, right? I said, everybody's marching out, but you have a pointy hat on. I said, what's your role? He says, well, I'm the Rimpak Lama. I said, oh, what does that mean? Well, and he's kind of he doesn't understand the question. I said, did you study business? He says, yeah. I said, well, on an org chart, where are you, right? And he's like this. I'm right below the Dalai Lama. I'm the Lama of Southeast Asia. And now we're emailing, talking about Jesus, right? Now, if I would have said to our church, hey, do you know what? Here's the plan. We're going to go over there, and this guy's computer system is sabotaged, and he's going to invite us up to his office, and we're going to fix the thing, and then we're going to no, it never happens, right? It's only because what are we doing? We're doing justice, we're loving kindness, and we're walking with God, and then we're going places we would never have been able to go without. So that's my prayer for you guys, is that you would follow Christ in that. And the book you have in your hands will help you develop those habits that will make the faith real on a day-to-day basis. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you for these students who, at the culmination of their college career, have invested an evening now in trying to understand next steps to take and how to live well. And I pray for each of them, Father, that having been blessed by you, they would walk into the future well able to be a blessing to those around them. And we'll thank you for that as we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Thanks much, you guys. Privilege to be here. See you.